Mr. Star and his tiger. Nothing ever happened in Riverside Town. David, Yasmin, and Peter sat on the wall in front of their building. Every morning, Mrs. Saki took her dog for a walk. Every morning, Mr. Walker came out of his door, looked at the sky, and went inside again. Every day, the milkman came. None of them spoke to the three children. Nothing ever happens, said David. Peter looked up. Look, he said, something is happening. A small blue van stopped outside the building. A man got out of the van. He went to the back of the van and opened the doors. The van was full of bags and boxes. Someone's moving into our building, said Yasmin. The man took the boxes out of the van. He looked exciting. He wore a long purple and orange cloak with a silver star. Each of the boxes had a writing on the side. Mr. Star turned round and saw the children. What's in these boxes? Asked Peter. Mr. Star just smiled. The children wanted to stay, but Peter's dad was calling. Peter, it's lunchtime, he shouted. After lunch, David, Yasmin, and Peter came back to the front of the building, but the van was not there. They looked everywhere for Mr. Star. They could not find him anywhere. We'll see him again tomorrow, said Yasmin. However, the next morning, they still could not find Mr. Star. They looked and looked. In the afternoon, they went upstairs to the first floor. Mr. Star was there. Mr. Star was there. He was painting the wall. David, Yasmin, and Peter stood and watched. First, he painted a large white square. He used a large brush. When the white paint was dry, he picked up a thin brush. He put it in the black paint and he started to draw a shape. What's it going to be? Asked Peter. Mr. Star just smiled. It's a horse, said Yasmin. No, said Peter. It's a lion. It's a zebra, said David. Yasmin was not sure. Perhaps it's not an animal at all, she said. Suddenly, David said, I know, it's a tiger. Yes, said Mr. Star. Mr. Star painted the head, the nose, the eyes, the mouth, and the body carefully. Then he painted the tail. He was very tired. Now I had to let it dry, he said, and then I'll add the color. It was a bad time, so David, Yasmin, and Peter had to go home. Good night, said Mr. Star. You can come and see tomorrow. I'll finish tomorrow morning. The next morning, Mr. Star got up early. He added the color. I'll let the paint dry now, he said to himself. Then he went out. After breakfast, David, Yasmin, and Peter came to see the tiger. The children stood in front of the painting. After a few minutes, Peter said, It's a good picture. It looks like a real tiger. Yes, said Yasmin, but I've never seen a tiger that color before. No, said David, but it still looks like a real tiger. Its eyes look very real. The tiger turned its eyes and looked at the children. And that mouth looks real, said Peter. The tiger moved its nose and opened its mouth. You're right, said Yasmin. It looks real and it almost looks alive. The tiger waved its tail, moved its legs, and walked slowly out of the painting. The children moved back and watched the tiger. The tiger looked around and smelled the air. Then it turned and ran upstairs. It's going upstairs, Peter shouted. Come on, let's follow it. The children ran upstairs after the tiger. On the second floor, Mr. Sai opened his door to get his milk. He was very surprised when he saw the tiger knock over his bottle of milk. Then the tiger started to drink the spilled milk. Oh, said Mr. Sai, I never seen a tiger that color before. The tiger finished the milk. It smelled the air again and ran downstairs. The children followed. When it got outside, the tiger started to walk to the shops. Two workmen were sitting on a wall. They were eating some sandwiches. The tiger took a sandwich from one of the workmen. It ate the sandwich. Then it ate all the sandwiches in his lunchbox. Then it ate the lunchbox. Did you see the tiger? Said the workman. It ate my lunchbox. The other workman just shook his head. I never seen a tiger that color before, he said. The tiger set off again. When it reaches the corner, it sat down in the middle of the road. A bus could not pass. It stopped behind the tiger. The bus driver lifted his hat and scratched his head. I never seen a tiger that color before, he said. Some of the passengers shouted at the tiger, Come on, move! The tiger did not hear them. At last, the bus driver shouted loudly and the tiger got out of the way. One of the passengers was a teacher. Oh, this is interesting, she said. I shall write a letter to the newspaper about the tiger. The tiger saw Mrs. Saki and her little dog. The dog started to bark when it saw the tiger. It wanted to play with the tiger. The tiger stopped. It looked at the dog, lifted its head, and roared. The dog hid under Mrs. Saki's skirt. Oh, said Mrs. Saki, I never seen a tiger that color before. There was a large flower bed full of pretty flowers in the middle of a riverside town. The tiger walked slowly onto the flower bed. It rolled on its back in the middle of the flowers and put its four legs straight up in the air. Then the tiger closed its eyes and slept. All the shopkeepers saw the tiger rolling in the flower bed. They all came out of their shops to look at the tiger. We never seen a tiger that color before, they all said. It can't stay here. People will be afraid and they won't come shopping. Someone telephoned the police. Two policemen came and looked at the tiger. One of them spoke into his radio. It's a tiger, he said, but I've never seen one that color before. The policeman and the shopkeepers looked at the tiger. What shall we do? They asked each other. Suddenly, Mr. Star arrived. What's wrong? He asked David, Yasmin, and Peter. It's your tiger, they said. It's alive. It drank Mr. Sai's milk, ate a workman's sandwiches, stopped the bus, frightened a dog, and now it's rolling in the flower bed. Mr. Star looked worried. Oh no, that's bad. I tried to stop it, he said. He walked to the tiger and whispered in its ear. The tiger stood up and followed Mr. Star. The children followed them. They went along the road to their building and walked upstairs. Mr. Star touched the tiger's head and chin. He pointed at the empty white square on the wall. Now, he said in a strong voice, get back on the wall. The tiger looked at Mr. Star, waved its tail, bent its legs, and jumped back into the painting on the wall. Mr. Star rubbed his hands and said, That's better. Mr. Star, David asked, Will the tiger come off the wall again? Will it eat someone? Peter asked. Mr. Star shook his head. Don't worry, it'll stay on the wall now, he said. The next morning, the children got up early and said, what happened today? After breakfast, they went to look for Mr. Star. They found him at the top of the stair on the second floor. He was looking at the wall. He smiled at the children. Hello, he said. What should I paint today? A lion, said Peter. No, said David. A snake? Yasmin thought for a moment and said, my favorite animal is an elephant, but if there is a live elephant in Riverside Town. Mr. Star picked up a paintbrush and smiled again. All right, this time I will paint an elephant, he said.